Let me ask you something simple, but quietly revealing. When your birthday is coming up, what do you feel first? Excitement or tension? A weight in your chest? A thought that sounds like, ugh, I hate this day. Maybe you joke about it. You say things like, I don't do birthdays, or let's just skip it this year, or please no surprises, I'm serious. You shrug it off. Call it cringe, childish, unnecessary, overrated. You say you don't care, but somewhere underneath that calm rejection, something else lives. A story, a memory, a pattern. Because people who hate celebrating their birthdays are almost never just low-key. There is usually a psychology behind it, quiet, layered, and deeply human. And if you look closely, if you listen beyond the jokes and the eye rolls, you might realize this isn't about a cake or a date on a calendar. It's about what that date has come to mean. For some people, birthdays used to feel magical. There was a time when they circled the day on the calendar, counted sleeps, talked about it weeks in advance. Back then, being celebrated didn't feel dangerous. It felt natural. They were small. The world felt big. And for one day, that world tilted toward them with balloons, candles, and clumsy, beautiful effort. But something changed. Maybe it was the first year no one really tried. The first party where too few people showed up. The first time a parent forgot. The first time someone important said, sorry, I'm busy, and didn't make it up to them. Or maybe it wasn't a single moment. Maybe it was a pattern. Every year, drama broke out. Someone started a fight. Someone got drunk. Someone used their birthday as a stage for their own chaos. The day that was supposed to mean, you matter, began to mean, anything can go wrong. And the nervous system learns. So they grew up. And somewhere along the way, the excitement dimmed. Not because they became mature, but because their body quietly filed birthdays under, unsafe. Now, when the date approaches, it doesn't feel like a celebration. It feels like a test, a spotlight they never asked for, an invitation to disappointment. So they do the only thing that seems logical. They pull the plug. No party. No plans. It's just another day. It looks like disinterest, but often it's protection. Psychologically, a birthday is never just a day. It's a symbol. It says you exist. You've made it another year. It invites people to gather around that truth and respond to it. When you hate celebrating your birthday, it's often not existence you're rejecting. It's the risk that comes with being seen, because birthdays bring three things many people secretly fear: attention, expectation, reflection. First, the attention. A room full of eyes, messages, calls, people waiting for you to react the right way. Grateful, happy, presentable. If you grew up being shamed for your emotions, that attention feels suffocating. You don't want people staring at you while your mind is racing with thoughts like, am I doing this right? Do I look happy enough? Is this worth all the effort? For someone with social anxiety, low self-worth, or a history of being mocked and minimized, the spotlight is not warmth. It's interrogation. So they say, I hate this, when what they really mean is, I don't know how to feel safe being looked at. Then there's expectation. Birthdays carry an invisible script. You're supposed to feel special. You're supposed to enjoy it. You're supposed to be grateful for whatever you get, even if it's small, last minute, or not what you needed. You're expected to perform joy even if that joy isn't there. If in the past you hoped too loudly, hoped people would show up, hoped they would remember, hoped someone would finally make you feel chosen, and that hope fell flat again and again, the mind quietly rewires. It lowers its expectations to protect the heart. I don't want anything. I really don't care. Let's not do anything this year. These sentences sound strong, independent, above it all. But sometimes they're just armor. The less you expect, the less it hurts when reality doesn't rise to meet you. And then there is reflection. Birthdays are time markers. They whisper, "Another year has passed. Who have you become?" Some people look at their life and feel peace. Others look and feel pressure, not because the number is old, but because it confronts them with the distance between where they are and where they thought they would be. They measure themselves against invisible timelines: career, relationships, healing, success. Suddenly, the day is no longer about cake. It's about disappointment, comparison, regret. No wonder some people would rather pretend the day doesn't exist. If every year feels like a quiet audit of your life, why would you want balloons on top of that? Hating your birthday can be your mind's way of saying, "I don't want to be evaluated today by anyone, including myself." There's another piece to this that many never admit. When you repeatedly feel like an afterthought in your own story, your birthday becomes a magnifying glass. The people you show up for all year, the ones whose milestones you never miss, do they show up for you? You say, "It's not a big deal," and you mean it. But somewhere inside, you still watch. Who remembers without a reminder? Who sends more than a generic emoji? Who calls instead of dropping a quick HBD? You tell yourself it doesn't matter. You delete the count in your head. But later, when things are quiet, your mind replays the day and quietly organizes people. Those who made space. Those who didn't. Those who said they care. Those who quietly prove they don't. And if year after year the people you pour into don't pour back into you, your brain adapts. It learns a painful lesson. This day just highlights how alone I really am. So your hatred for your birthday becomes less about age or celebration and more about refusing to sit through another live demonstration of emotional imbalance. Better to cancel the day than to prove to yourself again that you're the one no one truly shows up for. There's a psychological pattern here that often hides under the words "I hate birthdays." It looks like this: lower the expectation, reject the celebration, control the narrative. If you say, "I don't want anything," before anyone has a chance to forget you, then they can't technically disappoint you. You beat them to the punch. This is called preemptive self-protection, a mental strategy where you abandon your own need before anyone else gets the chance. It can sound like maturity. It can look like not needing anyone. But beneath it, there is often a familiar ache. If I don't need you, I don't have to feel the pain of you not being there. The tragedy is this: in avoiding the pain of being let down, you also avoid the possibility of being genuinely held. There are also people for whom birthdays are tangled with childhood tension. Maybe every year brought chaos, arguments over money, fights about effort, exes showing up, relatives bringing old wounds to the table, or maybe your family never made birthdays a big deal, not out of cruelty, but out of their own exhaustion, trauma, or survival mode. You learned early, wanting a special day is selfish. Other things are more important. Don't make a fuss. So you trained yourself to treat the day like any other, to need less, to ask for nothing. As an adult, that training shows up as disgust toward the idea of celebration. You might look at people who love birthdays with irritation, thinking, "Why do you need so much attention?" But often, the irritation is envy wearing a mask. Not envy for the decorations, but for the permission to want something openly without being shamed for it. And then there are those who genuinely have outgrown the fireworks. They don't avoid birthdays because of trauma. They simply no longer attach joy to a single date. Their life has become the celebration. Their rituals are quieter: a walk alone, a book, a day offline. They don't need a party to feel alive. But even for them, if you listen closely, there is still a soft line of truth. The day may be simple, the ritual may be quiet, yet a small, tender part of them still smiles when someone remembers. Because no matter how content you are within yourself, being seen still lands somewhere deep. So what happens psychologically when someone hates celebrating their birthday, but the day still comes? On the outside, they minimize it. They go to work, they answer messages with short, contained replies. They say, "I'm just chilling," or "nothing special, I'm keeping it low-key." On the inside, a quiet evaluation unfolds. Am I where I thought I'd be? Did I waste this year? Have I grown at all? Who is still here? Who have I outgrown? Who quietly outgrew me? It's like an emotional inventory happening undercover. No balloons, no candles. Just an internal moment of standing next to their own life and asking, does this feel like mine? If the answer is no, the birthday feels heavy. If the answer is uncertain, the birthday feels blurry. If the answer is yes, the birthday can be ordinary without feeling empty. Here's the quiet paradox. Many people who hate celebrating their birthdays are actually deeply sensitive. They feel everything. They notice who called, who forgot, who sent something thoughtful, who copied last year's message. They tell themselves it doesn't matter. They laugh it off. They move on quickly. But that doesn't mean the day didn't touch them. Avoiding the party does not erase the feelings. It only moves them inside. And inside, things are rarely as neutral as they appear. This isn't about forcing anyone to suddenly love their birthday. Some people never will, and that's okay. Not everyone heals by reclaiming the date. Not everyone needs candles to feel grateful for their life, but there is something quietly healing about understanding yourself more clearly. To realize that your discomfort around birthdays isn't proof that you're ungrateful, broken, or cold. It is evidence that you have a history with that day, a nervous system that remembers, a heart that adapted. Maybe you hate birthdays because somewhere along the line you were taught that your needs are an inconvenience. Maybe you hate them because they highlight who isn't here anymore. Maybe you hate them because they remind you of time, and time reminds you of loss. And loss reminds you that nothing is guaranteed. Whatever the reason, there is one truth beneath them all. You wanted that day to mean something once, and when it didn't, you closed the door. If there is a soft place to land in all of this, it might be here. Your birthday is not a test. Not of your popularity, not of your worth, not of how ahead or behind you are. It is a marker, a small flag in time that says, you are still here. You are still trying, still learning, still becoming. You are allowed to keep it simple. You are allowed to dislike the noise, to say no to the spotlight, to spend the day in ways that feel safe. And you are also allowed to admit, without shame, that a part of you still wishes to be remembered, to be acknowledged, to be held in someone's mind that day with warmth. Disliking celebrations doesn't cancel that longing. They can coexist. You can roll your eyes at the idea of a party and still quietly soften when a message arrives that says, I'm glad you exist. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. So the next time you feel that dread rising when the date gets close, instead of judging yourself, you might gently ask, is this hatred for my birthday really hatred for the day? Or is it grief? For what it used to be? For what it never was? For what you still wish it could mean? Because beneath all the layers, the defenses, the dismissive jokes, there is still that younger version of you, the one who once believed that this day was magic, that they were allowed to want, that they were allowed to shine for a moment without earning it. They might not want to party anymore. But they still want something simple, something quiet, something honest, to be seen, to be remembered, to be told by someone or even just by you. I'm glad you made it here.